Ready to light that fire by doing the things that make you come alive? Welcome to Health Raisers, a podcast for wise women. I'm your host, Dr. Nadine. I left a soul-crushing medical career full of bad news and evolved into a joyful health integration coach, helping hundreds of women find their healthy. You're more than your dress size. Stop putting up with toxic relationships, swallowing your true emotions, and sacrificing your mental health. Stop using your body as a battlefield. You're always giving. You deserve to put yourself first, not just for your sake, but for those you love. Wise women, let's make ourselves a priority right now. It's time to raise some health together. Wise women, welcome. Today, my guest is Dr. Evan Charloni, who is a physician and innovator specializing in geriatric medicine. It has been a dream of mine to have a geriatrician on the podcast for a while. Dr. Charloni is a medical advisor for Connect. It's KINNECT. The company's mission is to address social isolation, loneliness, and health disparities among older adults. Dr. Evan has also done plenty of research and presentations on delirium care, mental health, and spirituality in medicine, underscoring his holistic approach to patient care. You are a fascinating person. I wanted to talk to you about the state of geriatrics, about where you see the need increasing, and how maybe ideas as to how we're going to meet those needs. Before we kind of get into the questions, looking up some stats were pretty scary. According to the Association of Geriatrics, I believe is what the organization is called. But it says that by 2030, that there's going to be approximately a 50% increase of a need for more geriatricians. Current day, we have approximately only in the 7,000s of certified practicing geriatricians. And the adult population, the older adult population over 65, 54 million, and is just going to keep increasing with time. So, not to start with all the doom and gloom, but I wanted to welcome you, and I wanted to just really find out more about the practice of geriatrics. What got you into it? Because it is not something that you hear a lot about, even though there's so much need. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Happy to be here with you today, and for that warm welcome. I have loved old people for as long as I can remember. And I think a lot of us relate to experiences when we're younger with our grandparents, our close friends, this experience of being in the community with our older adult community members. And when I was growing up, I had a lot of sick family members, and that really shaped my decision to get into medicine at all. Seeing the way that they suffered, their unique health challenges, and the way the health system helped and the way that it hurt, frankly. So that sort of shaped my desire to go into medicine, in particular for older adults. And learning more about the challenges that our country is facing in terms of health systems and population health, those also shape my desire to go into geriatric medicine.
So you knew right away. You went into medical school and this was your path, and there was no veering off of that path.
Well, I think like most medical students, we go through our clerkships and we get to see what we like, what we don't like. And I entertained a few things. I really like dermatology. I was even drawn to some of the surgical specialties. But I just couldn't shake my interest in primary care, and particularly internal medicine. So specialty care for adults. similar to family medicine,
Mm-hmm.
but with a focus on adults greater than 18. And as you know, a lot of our practice is with folks that are in their older years as well, 65 plus. So geriatrics was really a fine tuning of that in internal medicine.
So when you were going into your residency, is it still, because I went to medical school a million years ago, is it still a 1 year for internal medicine, but then for the subspecialties, 1 year of the internship, and then you go into your specialty? And how long was it to train for geriatrics?
Yeah, so the internal medicine residency was 3 years long. 1 year of internship, and then the final 2 years of residency. And then geriatric medicine is a 1 year fellowship,
Okay.
often put together, structured with hospice and palliative fellowship. So a lot of people actually become triple boarded in medicine or family medicine, in geriatrics, and hospice and palliative care.
Bringing you Health Raisers is possible because of these incredible sponsors. Feeling the need for a little pampering? Do you want an escape from the hustle and bustle of daily life? Mac Salon and Day Spa is your destination for relaxation and rejuvenation in Southwest Michigan. Get ready for a retreat in the woods. Mac offers comprehensive services tailored to your needs, including massage, facials, nails, waxing, and hair treatments, ensuring you feel refreshed and beautiful. Whether you're preparing for a special occasion or simply treating yourself, the experts at MAC are committed to helping you look and feel your best. Their commitment to wellness isn't just about beauty, it's about balance, confidence, and feeling amazing in your skin. Visit them today and discover why they're Southwest Michigan's premier choice for all your beauty needs. Looking for some time away from the chaos of everyday life? Step into the beauty of Fernwood Botanical Garden, where nature, peace, and renewal come together. Nestled along the scenic St. Joseph River Valley, in between Niles and Buchanan, Fernwood's 105 acres of lush gardens, quiet trails, and serene woodlands offer a sanctuary for replenishing your soul. Wander through vibrant landscapes, listen to the melodies of birds, and connect with nature at your own pace. Indoors, you'll find an inspiring art gallery, a lush fern conservatory, and a welcoming cafe, perfect for reflection and relaxation. At Fernwood, there's always something to discover, from engaging classes and special events to charming, verdant venues for your own gatherings. It's more than a destination, it's a feeling, a place to breathe, learn, and grow. Plan your visit today. Explore, discover, connect. In the mood for coffee, tea, yummy pastries, or cool swag? My friends at Infusco have got you covered. Infusco Coffee Roasters is a cozy neighborhood coffee joint in Sawyer and St. Joseph, Michigan. Infusco stands for a healthy community. They craft irresistible seasonal drinks, sourcing local artisans' products. The flavors shine from quality ingredients, and their beans are roasted on site. They do not hide behind tons of sugar. Every time I go, I'm greeted by my name with a smile. Bad service is just non-existent. It feels like stepping into a friend's living room. They keep it personal. Old school, eclectic coffee mugs on the wall, fun merch, including stickers designed by artists, t-shirts, and sweatshirts. It's the perfect place to get to know your neighbors and chat with tourists. You will always find people deep in conversation. Special events keep it fresh. Community. Health, the heart of Sawyer. That's Infusco. I hope to meet you there. How has the interest in going into primary care changed, do you think? It wasn't, I guess, it's my understanding has been that it's always been challenging to attract students to go into the primary care specialties for a lot of reasons. You know, quite frankly, there's debt. Medical school is by far not free. And you're talking about medical school and you're talking about even college before that. So you incur a lot of debt, and the primary care specialties traditionally have not paid as much as, say, these surgical specialties and such. Has that changed at all over time?
Yeah, you bring up a good point around that. And as you mentioned earlier, the gap between our older adult population and their providers, their doctors, is growing because a lot of folks are not renewing their geriatric medicine certification or going into it in the first place. And the same is true of the primary care specialties. So there's a big gap and not a lot of financial incentives to do it. In our country, there have been some workarounds in terms of state and federal level grants to encourage students to go into those fields. But it's still tricky to make a living doing primary care, even on the other side of your education and training. I think that we're going to start to see a lot of changes as we have more value-based care organizations. Lots of these are backed with private equity and have more resources to support folks that have an interest in primary care fields.
So for people that may be curious, who may not have even seen a geriatrician, you go to a family medicine practitioner or an internist. What is the difference in the care that you'll receive by a specialist in geriatrics?
That's a great question. So in this field, like I mentioned, we go deeper into how to take care of older adults, the nuances involved in the aging process. So we focus a lot on syndromes that are unique to older adults as they live longer. And our approach to the assessment of a patient is unique. So things like continence, urinary incontinence, fecal incontinence, mobility problems, the unique interactions of medications with the aging adult. These are things that we have particular education and training in. And we focus not just on quantity of life, but we really try to get a sense of what makes life meaningful to the individual. And that changes, of course, all throughout life, but particularly as we get into those later years. So geriatricians are equipped to have goals of care discussions and personalizing a patient's treatment to align with their values.
How involved are those discussions with caregivers, family members, people who are closely associated? I had a doctor on once, Dr. Tina Satarangani, and she talked about how most of our healthcare or our care takes place in the community. You don't spend a lot of time with your doctor. You spend a ton more time with yourself and the people around you to stay healthy. So how are you very intentional about making sure that you're having a broader conversation with the people that are involved, their teams?
That is absolutely necessary. So geriatricians are experts at complexity and leaders in an interdisciplinary team. So not only does that include things like physical therapy, occupational therapy, nursing, social work, but that also includes the patient's family, all of their caregivers, formal and informal. And depending on the side of care or the level of care, that can be inclusive of hospital doctors, nursing home staff, assisted living facilities. So we really sort of bridge that gap among all the different team members.
So see, this is where, the problem can become too many cooks in the kitchen, where you have this specialist for this issue. I'm watching this with my parents right now. You go to the dentist for this, you go to the eye doctor for this, you go to the the cardiologist for this, you go to your internist for this, you go the gynecologist and the urologist. It just becomes so complex. It's very refreshing to hear that your focus, and is this what holistic means to you? I guess this is another part of the question, or is the question, you're putting together all of these different pieces in order to help make a more cohesive and take away the overwhelming aspect of a patient's care?
That's a big mission of mine. That cohesiveness, that the way that our medical system is so fractured, everybody's operating in little silos, doing their own, working on their own piece of the puzzle. But we have a real challenge about how to make this patient focused and patient centered to where it creates actionable takeaways for a patient and their caregivers.
Yes.
So we act as translators, we act as bridges to try to really focus on the individual patient's experience and quality of life.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the day-to-day? What would a typical day look like? Speaking from the practicality of it and describing the patients you serve, their unique challenges, and how you see describing your holistic approach, how that you put that into action.
For sure. So as an internist and a geriatrician, I work in a few different settings, mostly in the primary care office. So just your traditional doctor's office, and folks come and see me. I don't do a whole lot of nursing home or assisted living anymore, but those patients are still seen in the same way they would be in the clinic. Sometimes the visits are just in their home or where they live. And then in the hospital, making rounds, like a lot of folks are familiar with in hospital medicine. But the patients are unique, particularly in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and even beyond that. And one of the guiding principles for me is that sometimes less is more. And that takes a lot of time to understand, to get to know someone and figure out really what matters most to them and what are their values. And listening to that, taking their input into the decision-making process as we decide what the next step is. And I can think of even last week in clinic, there was a day when I saw, I think, 3 or 4 patients in their 90s. And in those visits, we're not really making a whole lot of changes. I mean, these are folks that I see probably every 3 months, sometimes every 6 months. And oftentimes we don't make any changes. We just talk about their priorities. And for them, they want to be less aggressive with their changes. They want to be on as few medicines as possible, have as few visits as possible, so that they can be spending their time on what they want to spend it on. But just like all my patients, prioritizing nutrition, restorative sleep, movement, and social connection, that's something that we focus on wherever we are, whether that's in the hospital or the clinic. If you're 30 years old or if you're 90 years old, those things still apply too.
How do you balance needing that much time to really have a deep conversation and to get to understand the individual with the pressure of needing to see as many people as possible?
Yeah, you've highlighted another struggle in our U.S. healthcare system. And there is pressure in a fee-for-service environment. And particularly in rural health clinics, there are minimum productivity standards, meaning there's a certain number of patients that have to be seen every day in order for the whole machine to keep working. But there is a value in incremental care, incrementalism. So making a few changes that add on one another through subsequent visits. And so that's the approach I take. I sort of give myself permission to know that, well, we might not get to where we need to be this visit, but keep coming back to see me. And eventually, through the months, through the years, we've built on that so much that a little tweak here and there really goes a long way.
Okay. Let's dive a little bit deeper now, because you've mentioned how in your bio, and you have said, you've plainly stated that spirituality is very important to you in incorporating that into your approach. Can you tell us about that?
Happy to. I grew up in Mississippi, in the Bible Belt, in a religious family. And so that's been something that I've kind of grown up with and been interested in. And as I've gotten older and learned from other people with different faith traditions or different cultural traditions that may not even include a religious practice, I wanted to understand sort of how that plays into everything, how folks take care of themselves, how folks get care from their doctors and their care team. And so I really wanted to understand all I could about religion and spirituality. And what I found was that spirituality is for everybody, regardless of a person's religious background, religious beliefs. Those things are separate. Sometimes they can occur together, religion and spirituality, and that's great. But even for folks that don't consider themselves religious, there's something within everybody, that spiritual connection. And what I mean by that is an openness to showing up vulnerably, person to person, and an ethic of compassion that extends outside of one's own circle. That's for all people.
So how does that look in everyday, practical, applied sense when you're interacting with your patients? And I will say, I'm reading a book now. It's not in front of me right now, but it's the concept of multidimensionality in well-being. And it's a dense book that talks about different aspects of how you can't just look at a person's physical well-being. It's intertwined with their culture, as you have just said, with their culture and with their community, with their beliefs. And so it's so important to have these more nuanced conversations with patients to get to understand, like, say you're a person who really believes in family. If your family's not healthy, you're not healthy. Then you really can't have an individualistic type of discussion with someone like that. It has to incorporate the talk of the family structure and what's going well and what needs improvement. So, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So how do you see that? What do your discussions look like in order to get to know what's important to that person and how it may manifest in their physical and mental and emotional well-being, say?
I gotcha. So spirituality, I've learned, really, when folks practice spirituality in their own lives, it confers resilience. It helps folks make sense of life and tackle life's challenges. So one way to get to the root of that is just to ask outright, how do you cope with this? What do you draw strength from? What sort of things do you do that help you overcome life's challenges? And just asking open-ended questions like that can sometimes get you right to the heart of what somebody's beliefs are and how they cope.
So then you're able to craft a more individualized, no, I won't say a more personal approach for that person. Because if it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't seem like something that is important to them or that they can apply, then how do you go home? And if you just tell me my hemoglobin A1C is elevated and I need to do X, Y, and Z in order to, to manage my pre-diabetic or my diabetic state, but I don't get it. I don't really understand it, or I'm not able to tell you I live in this particular environment and I have these challenges which will make it hard for me to adhere to these recommendations, then yeah.
That's right. Understanding what somebody's values are, what they want to be doing, and what they hold as important definitely helps us create individualized treatment plans. I saw a lady last week with end-stage kidney disease, and we were discussing a plan to get her started on dialysis. And it was a tricky situation because she is pretty advanced in age, has a lot of medical comorbidities, and really doesn't want to do dialysis at all. Mm. She had some family members that had done dialysis, didn't have good outcomes. But despite all of her health problems, still likes to travel, still likes to be out and about with her family. And she understands that without dialysis, she might not live a long time, but she'd have certain independence that she might not otherwise have. Mm. And digging a little bit deeper, asking her how she likes to spend her time, I found out that she really enjoys singing. And she was invited to sing at a sister church that she is going to have to travel to. But that opened the door to really dig into what she valued, what her fears were, what her experience with illness is, and how we as her doctors could design a plan that helps her not only meet her goals, but honor her own beliefs about what it means to live a good life. And so we did an advance directive, and we decided that dialysis really isn't right for her, and that for all the time that God had left for her, we were going to maximize her quality of life and control her kidney disease medically.
Oh, that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So what I'm sure you have, well, it was your inspiration for Connect, right? The issue of isolation and loneliness, especially affecting everyone, yes, but more so an aging population. How do you see that in practice? What are the effects of social isolation and loneliness in your patients?
We've seen a lot about that over the last several years after the pandemic. And we continue, even in 2025, to learn more and more about how isolation can be harmful. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General released a report that showed some data about how social isolation can be as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So, in other words, the long-term effects of isolation and loneliness can have real morbidity and mortality associated with that. We know that these emotional states are associated with heart disease, stroke, dementia, and cognitive decline. And there hasn't been enough attention on these topics as far as what are we going to do about it? What can we do that's new that helps people in this demographic that are often the most vulnerable?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure this is a no-brainer, but I am curious. How do these issues affect different socioeconomic groups?
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about how it affects older adults who may not be is able to connect with others, but folks in certain socioeconomic groups are disproportionately affected by some of these conditions: isolation, loneliness. Folks in rural areas with limited access to technology often aren't able to connect, as well as somebody in a more urban setting, a more resource setting. And certainly folks in lower socioeconomic groups that have other challenges, they may not prioritize the relaxing, the stress relief, the connection that folks that have it a little bit better off might be able to do.
Okay. So tell us about Connect.
For sure. So Connect is a social media platform for families. It's a place where memories live, where users can share their family traditions, their stories, and really what matters most to them. There's an opportunity for making a physical book with memories and your own stories to share with family members, or to use it completely on the app itself. And it's different from things that we already have, like Facebook or other social media, in that it's not a place for advertisements. This is a private space for you and your family, and it's something that doesn't encourage you to doom scroll. It encourages you to interact with the app and use this to set up real in-person family time.
Was this born out of a need to try to figure out how to mitigate social isolation and loneliness? And I also wondered, to kind of for legacy purposes. So if you have a parent who is undergoing, or a grandparent who has dementia, then this might be a good opportunity to start capturing some of those stories in early stages.
You nailed it.
Okay.
The founder, Omar Alvarez, this was inspired by his grandfather's own struggle with dementia. As he watched the slow decline of his grandfather's cognitive function, he realized there's really no place to put these memories, this life, in a way that honors the richness and the longevity of a whole person. So he created it for that reason, and then also had a close friend die as a young adult with cancer. So you mentioned the applications for legacy building. That was one of the biggest reasons why Omar knew that this was something that was needed, is to preserve those memories that might otherwise get lost.
So are there opportunities then, because you mentioned multiple families, so it's not just a personal app where you can go in and talk amongst, I mean, I'm sure you could with your extended family, but what kind of interactions are possible with other family members? What have you noticed, or maybe you've been surprised by developments that you might not have anticipated?
Yeah. So the app is organized into kin groups, and you can create as many as you'd like. You could have one for your given family, your immediate and extended family, to share things like family vacations or recipes or holidays. But then you could also have your friends from college, your lifelong friends who are really more like family through the years. That can be a kin group. Or any number of close friends, chosen family, as we call it. And there's lots of ways to interact, and prompts within the app that reminds you about birthdays, and even some questions to help folks kind of get started with sharing. Little prompts that remind you to engage with recent activities you may have done together, or old memories that you might not have otherwise thought about. So there's lots of little opportunities in the app to maintain that connection. And the best thing about it is that this is a place where people feel like they belong. And I don't know about you, but in the pandemic, when we were so spread out and just to ourselves, some of those feelings sort of creep in. Do I matter? Do I belong to anyone? And this restores that dignity that you just don't get if you're doom scrolling on Facebook.
I love this. And I love the phrase you hit it on the head, something I was thinking while you were talking, chosen family. It's very empowering. I think the discussion nowadays is about not just valuing your family because you share DNA, but also in making that concept wider to mitigate your sense of loneliness or feeling like you don't matter, which is being able to pick the people who mean so much to you. And you may not be bonded by blood, but your love and your friendship is so deep, and that level of respect that you consider this person family as well. And it seems like just another way to enrich that relationship and build upon it and build more like that.
Absolutely. And it heals those connections with other people. they heal, they help make us stronger in life's challenges, whether it's health related or otherwise. And it's just such an undervalued source of healing.
Okay, let's talk about. You alluded to this a little bit earlier with the advanced directive example that you shared. How I'm sure you have had to be comfortable with the concept of death and reflecting upon what that may look like for a person, preparing for it, not letting things creep up on you, having choice to decide what your story is going to look like. So what is your relationship with death and the discussion, the rich discussions I'm sure that you've had to have over the years with so many patients and family?
I hear you. It's something that has changed a lot through the years. Growing up, as I mentioned, with a lot of sick family members, I was confronted with it pretty early, seeing my grandparents pass away and being sick before then. So I have always been curious about how do we do this? How do we do this together in a way that reduces suffering and promotes dignity? So with that background, going into internal medicine and then geriatric medicine, along with my hospice and palliative care colleagues, I got to see firsthand how we can help. And this sort of letting go and surrendering of our vital functions as we age is hard on everybody. And we all face this in various ways, whether it's the loss of a job or the loss of a relationship or the loss of autonomy. This is the task as adults, is surrendering and letting go of things that are outside of our scope to change. And with that in mind, there still is a great deal of autonomy in how we do it, how we cope with it, how we face those challenges in a way that we do it well. And so I just try to learn as much as I can about different people's experience. And I think this whole connection with spirituality is why it's so interesting, the way people do it. And as I'm sure you're very familiar with, watching somebody suffer well in a situation that's absolutely horrible is so inspiring. To your doctor, to your family members. But at the end of the day, the way that we do this with other people, with our relationships, is really how we make sense out of all this. So many things that we can't change, but knowing that you don't have to do it alone helps you get through it.
How do you encourage people that are so afraid that they don't even want to, they don't even want to think about the concept of not being here anymore? You know, you do have people like that who will fight tooth and nail. I want to live as long as possible, and I don't care what I have to do. And I mean, that's fine. We all have a right to make those choices. But part of the challenge in that type of mindset then is that we're not preparing everyone around us then for when you will inevitably not be here anymore. We're not having that discussion. We're not having the discussions of what do I want hospice? Do I want DNR? I just learned the other day that there are two levels of DNR. I didn't know that, where there's DNR, I still want my treatment, but if my heart fails, you can stop. And then there's DNR of, I don't want anything, just no life saving support, DNR. So there's a lot of nuance. And it's upsetting. You're in a situation where you see someone you love suffering. It's going to be hard for you to let go of that person. and then you don't know what to do because we haven't had those talks. And
Yeah.
then maybe there are other people involved and we're not agreeing on what's the best thing for this person.
Yeah. You paint such a vivid picture of the reality for so many of us, in the hospital, in the clinic, at home. And you're right. This is a scary topic. It's an uncomfortable topic. And many of us don't even want to go there. If we can, having those conversations early, advanced care planning, well before we get to that stage is the hope that we can get to know somebody and understand. But even when those conversations aren't able to take place, shifting the focus away from making the decision and more towards who is this person, what makes life meaningful, what matters most to them, I found that can be a helpful starting point.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is not making the decision, but focusing on, well, what do you want to be doing? How do you want to spend your time? And who do you want to spend it with? I think that can help family members and caregivers help make those medical decisions if the person is unable or unwilling. And of course, it's a tough decision, but knowing that we're making a choice that's in alignment with how they would want to live, if they were able to articulate it, can sometimes take the pressure off and help with those heavy decisions. But then the other category, of course, is folks that are just sort of in denial or just can't go there. And a conversation is just not going to happen. Like so many of my patients that don't take their medicine or don't do what they're supposed to, we have an opportunity to simply love that person, to express warmth for that person, to support them and show care for them, even when our agendas don't match up.
Yeah. So in situations like that, you mentioned patients not being, not taking your advice, not following the advice. What compliance? We're talking about compliance. So what are the barriers to that? Have you been able to kind of think about the root of why there might be resistance? Is it financial? Is it essentially not being able to get to the pharmacy? So maybe physical reasons, forgetfulness. What are some of the reasons behind a lack of compliance?
So we know that these so-called social determinants of health have a profound impact on somebody's medical status, their ability to adhere to the medical treatment and have a good outcome. And when we're thinking about a health outcome, is it related to their access to care? Can they see a doctor at all? Is it related to financial concerns? Is it related to some other factor that we haven't identified? And it's interesting, there's even some data in older adult patients that point to adverse experiences in childhood that can affect somebody's medical adherence and their outcome. Yeah. So this is an incredibly nuanced and complicated topic, but it underscores the importance of why we need supportive relationships in our lives, why we need an interdisciplinary team that includes a licensed clinical social worker, so that we can really spend that time and get to the heart. And you may notice a theme here, and a lot of people think this is kind of woo-woo, but it really does come back to showing care and love, warmth, and respect for persons in their unique cultural context. And so that I think really gets at the heart of what it's all about, is loving another person, relating to another person, being curious, and really digging in, even when it's difficult to do so.
That's beautiful. So we've been really talking about not so much the physical. Well, we've touched upon a lot of physical, but it's really been a discussion centered around our spiritual health and how that relates to taking care of ourselves with our doctors. How has your work taught you about the power of reflection? We've touched upon it here and there, but what would you say more formally? How do you think about reflection and how important it is?
I think it's important to debrief after cases, to make some time to disconnect and unplug and allow the experiences of the day to synthesize into something meaningful, and to grow from it. As doctors in our medical education, I mean, we try to make space for this, to take time to reflect and consider what went well, what didn't go well, getting feedback from our mentors and from our peers, and translating that into quality improvement, making things better, safer for our patients. But it's something that's difficult to do. It's difficult to prioritize on a regular basis. It's also related to stress management. So taking that time to reflect and decompress from a situation helps in that stress response that's so important for overall health.
How do you personally find the time for reflection? Not just work, because you do have to disconnect from it. You can't just be a doctor all the time. So I'm sure you do reflect upon things that happened during the workday, and you've learned from specific cases what to do, what not to do, maybe for yourself, not judging, but so how do you personally take that time to reflect about the power of learning from the past and guiding yourself in terms of future decisions?
I'd be happy to answer that. I hate to admit it, I'm very lucky. I work right next to a state park, and at least once a week, I take a walk at the state park around a lake. And it's about a 1.5 mile loop that I like to do. Sometimes I don't have that much time. I'll do it during my lunch break. But as often as I'm able, taking a few minutes to take a walk, look at the birds and all the other animals and the water and the pine trees swaying is an incredibly powerful moment of reflection and pause that has meant the world to me in my career where I currently practice. But another favorite thing of mine to do is distance running. And I found that rhythm of focusing on the breath and running mile after mile also creates the headspace where I'm able to tune out and consider the day and have some time to myself. So being still in nature or running wherever I am, those are two ways I make the time to reflect.
Yeah, that doesn't sound indulgent at all. It sounds very balanced to me. Thank you for sharing that. How can we find you and find Connect?
So check out connect.club, KINNECT.club. And that'll give you a lot of information about the app. You can also get my contact information there as well. And it's evan@connect.club. And I look forward to hearing from you.
Before I let you go, what is your personal definition of what it means to be healthy?
My personal definition of what it means to be healthy, to be able to move my body in a way that feels meaningful, to nourish it with simple, nutritious foods, have restorative sleep in the evenings, and plenty of meaningful connections day after day, being connected to others. With those things in mind, I think that's a good day.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm so happy we connected. See what I did there? Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much for the invitation. Hope we talk again soon.
Wise women, move from last place to first place in your life. Stop using your body as a battlefield. Let's raise health together with a customized health plan just for you. Contact me at npkhealthintegration.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.